Welcome back to Movie Talk. Today we're discussing the San Diego Comic-Con 2019 updates from Warner Brothers. On top of that, we also have some quotes from Ron Howard regarding how Solo, a Star Wars story, did at the box office, and specifically his thoughts on online trolling and how that might have affected how the movie did. I am a very lucky lady today because I get to sit at this desk with two wonderful guys who have varying opinions on Comic-Cons, and that's totally fine because we have John Rocha, who soaks it all up, and Jeff Sneider on the table, who knows everything that goes on behind the scenes. You want your industry knowledge, you turn to that guy right there.
Hi, everybody. Good to be back.
Always happy to have you. All right. Story number one, it's a big one. It was breaking and evolving all morning this morning because it first started with It Chapter 2 director Andy Muschietti taking to Instagram to reveal that that movie was going to have a very special event on Wednesday night at San Diego Comic-Con, which is now basically Scare Diego, New Line's horror event. We don't know specifically what's going to happen, but one might assume some of the cast is going to be there. Maybe they'll show some footage. But the thing is, when that information started breaking, then there was speculation that, that was all that Warner Brothers was doing. We were asking each other what we thought all morning, and then officially we kind of got the word from Wonder Woman director Patty Jenkins, who then took to Twitter and wrote, "By now you've heard WB isn't going to Hall H this year. We're so sad to miss you there and waiting until December to start our official Wonder Woman 84 campaign in full. But the truth is, we can just barely wait." So first off, let's start with them not being in Hall H at all this year. And I guess the obvious question, number one right now, is why? What would lead them to make this decision, especially when last year in particular, it feels like Warner Brothers and DC movies kind of dominated the talk at Comic-Con from our perspectives, at least.
I think it's connected to a lot of things that are happening now as the entertainment world landscape is shifting, right? This idea of streaming services, this idea of owning your content, producing your own content, and then putting it out. You look at what what Disney does with their celebration, all that, like they're in control from beginning to end of the thing. With Warner Brothers here, I think studios are starting to realize that they don't need Comic-Con as much as they used to in the past. There are other smaller Comic-Cons they could do. There's New York Comic-Con. There's other things that they can do, and I think they're starting to realize that they don't have to, and they want to control the message. They control how they put it out, and don't be surprised if Warner Brothers starts and launches their own version of Disney Celebration. I wouldn't be surprised at all, and it's an extension of the streaming service, wanting to own, control from beginning to end everything that comes out, so there's no kind of like a third party coming in and messing up the message. That's what I think. Plus, the attendance is slightly going down every year for Comic-Con. Yes, you can barely get a hotel room. There's people going, but I think it's starting to feel not as overwhelming as it used to.
I think I would agree with you a little more if Warner Brothers announced plans to have their own convention, because to me, it seems like the smarter move for them to continue to dig their claws in and dominate the conversation there, especially because we still don't know the specifics of Marvel's plan and also maybe even Star Wars. But the thing is, Disney has D23 and they also have Star Wars Celebration. So if that's the way the landscape is changing going forward, wouldn't it behoove Warner Brothers to use this structure that's already there and paid for and not their responsibility with a built-in audience to put all of these movies, especially right now when after Aquaman, after Shazam, they're having this resurgence all over again. They have so many hot properties coming up. It just feels like such a missed opportunity to me. And also maybe I'm a little sensitive because I was looking forward to seeing them there, but it does truly feel like a missed marketing opportunity not to take some of the spotlight.
But who is going to go to Comic-Con that wasn't going to go see their movies anyway? That's the thing at the end of the day. It's like it's a waste of money at times, and it's a waste of time. It's just for the fans. And the fans with the trolling, we're going to get to the second story, maybe studios are realizing, well, why should we do all this extra effort if you're just going to leak our trailers, talk crap about stuff, put negative trolling into the sphere about our work? Why bother? We're just going to put it out when it comes out, and why take the risk?
You just touched on something that Will McLean brought up in the chat too, is WB skipping Comic-Con as a response and frustration to their footage always getting leaked. So it's an important thing to bring up as well.
Are we considering this a skipping Comic-Con just because they're not in Hall H? They're just in a different room or wherever the heck Scare Diego takes place. It's outside. I don't know.
Well, Warner Brothers and New Line is technically there. They're just not there with their DC films. And actually, if you want want to also think about the rest of their franchises. Who knows what's happening with Fantastic Beasts, but that had a big presence at Comic-Con last year. And on top of that, Godzilla King of the Monsters just came out, but we have another Godzilla vs. Kong movie coming out too, and that would have had a place in Hall H.
Yeah, but I don't know. But like to say Warner Brothers is skipping San Diego entirely isn't true. I just think that the movies that they had ready, Dr. Sleep, It Too, are just they're better suited for the audience that will be at Scare Diego. No,
that's the thing is I also wonder what they're going to use Scare Diego for this year, because last year I believe it was a teeny tiny behind the scenes thing for It Chapter 2, and then it was the announcement of Annabelle Comes Home, and then also the Curse of La Llorona. So I do wonder, with such a juggernaut like It Chapter 2, is Scare Diego just going to be that this year?
No, I think they're definitely going to have Dr. Sleep presence. That's what I would assume.
Even though it's not a New Line movie?
Yeah, no, I don't think that necessarily matters. I think we're going to get the trailer sooner rather than later on that. So
yeah, I have very high hopes for that trailer. I want to see it very soon. Rocha, do you care at all about San Diego? About Scare Diego?
I'm starting to slowly understand that this is something that's really a big deal, and going to it would be fun to explore. I like being scared out of my mind. I like going to horror films and getting scared. But overall, I don't see myself running to go see Scare Diego yet. And I'm not even going to be at Comic-Con this year for the first time ever. I've got a wedding. And that, for me, is the first time ever. Like, normally I would have pushed back and been like, no, honey, I can't go. You go to the wedding in Portland. I'm going to stay here. But I don't feel an inclination to go. I found myself last year.
John's growing up, folks. John's becoming an adult.
I've done it for 12 years in a row now. And I last year I felt myself coming back to the hotel room more often than not. And
he needed a nap.
I do that to rest. Whereas I was doing that to just watch the trailers in peace and calm in the hotel room rather than in the mania of a room.
Perri, is Scare Diego, is it just a branding thing? Like where is Scare Diego held? Is it inside of the convention center or no?
Scare Diego last year, no, not in the convention center. I forget specifically what the theater was called that it was held at, but it was a very, very small venue. It was a tiny
so
theater.
It can't accommodate that many people, you're saying?
Unless they move it to a different venue this year. I think we're talking about, I'm terrible at estimating numbers, but maybe I would guess like 100 people.
100 people.
You're the box office queen, you estimate numbers.
I've never been.
When I eyeball physical beings in a room.
Yeah.
Two different estimates right there.
7,000 people.
I just think we've seen this more and more each year. There's always one or two studios that hold out, that don't go to Comic-Con, and I think, frankly, it's going to be more commonplace.
Yeah, Marvel didn't do it. HBO didn't do it during Game of Thrones to promote the final season. They didn't do it. So, I think more studios are just realizing it's not worth the hassle.
And they brought Wonder Woman last year. They showed that footage at Comic-Con last year.
And people criticized it. Right off the bat. They were tearing it apart online, saying it looked cheesy, saying it looked terrible, saying it didn't look good. Yes, there were some people who liked it, but there was a lot of people who didn't. So why take the chance?
Right,
but why take the chance? It just doesn't make sense to me.
All right. Well, just to clarify here, Brian Gallagher is asking, is Warner Brothers and DC skipping as a whole or just the movies? You were emphasizing that before, Jeff. They're not going to be in Hall H. That's specifically what we're covering because they are going to have Scare Diego, and apparently they're also going to have a bigger presence on the convention center floor, which I plan on staying far away from, not because I'm not interested. I want to see whatever they bring this year, but just because it's so congested in there. Let's see if we can squeeze in one more question
just lost
here.
Its luster.
It does.
Maybe a little bit. Actually, let's take this question from Steve here. Could Warner Brothers at least release some exclusive images from Joker, Birds of Prey, Godzilla vs. Kong, and Dune around San Diego Comic-Con?
Well, they already released an exclusive image today, right? Gal Gadot did that image right
us.
there. Yeah, so they already released an image, and look how it captivated the online audience.
They could do that on any day, really.
Yeah. I wonder if there is a way to kind of strategically plan it in a way that would almost steal away some of something else's thunder. I don't know. We're going to wait and see, and you can bet we are going to be covering all the Comic-Con planning leading up to the event in July, and then we will also bring you all the coverage straight from San Diego Comic-Con 2019. Before we move into story number 2, Ron Howard's thoughts on Solo, A Star Wars Story's box office numbers. We have some stuff to promote. There's actually a really cool episode of Comic Book Shopping that I urge you to check out. Here's a clip for you guys.
I'm Coy Jandro. We are here at Golden Apple Comics in the heart of Hollywood, right on Melrose, and I am here with Alexandra Shipp. Yes, Storm herself.
One day it's gonna work. What?
Isn't that incredible?
I gotta read this. I'm gonna figure out the
Study up.
logistics. Oh, I'm so ready.
You.
In addition to comic book shopping, we also have another interview on the channel with that guy right there, John Rocha, talking some sports stuff.
Yeah, on the Collider
What
Sports
happened?
channel, I had the WBC welterweight champion Sean Porter and former four-time featherweight champion Abner Mars stopping by. They're from Inside PBC on Fox, talking all things that are going on in the world of boxing, including that Andy Ruiz Jr. upset of Anthony Joshua. So watch that interview. Great half an hour.
I don't know what any of that means,
Yeah,
but I
it's
trust
okay.
you. It's
Me
great
neither.
stuff. All right, story
good
number
interview.
2 today. Let's get into it. Ron Howard he's busy right now promoting a documentary, and he popped on to the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, and while he was there, he kind of veered off and talked a little bit about Solo, a Star Wars story, and said this specific quote about how it did at the box office. He said, "I wish it would have lived up to the box office expectations and so forth, so that's disappointing. Why? Maybe it's the release date, maybe it's the idea that it's sort of too nostalgic. Pushback from the previous movie, which I kept hearing was something, and some trolling. Definitely some trolling. It was especially noticeable prior to the release of the movie in several of the algorithms, whether it's Metacritic or Rotten Tomatoes. There was an inordinate push down on the want to see and on the fan voting." So this is where he stands on this right now, or at least this is the opinion he's expressing. It is a year later, and there have been some changes out there. So do you guys think we're in a different position as far as how these types of incidents are affecting movies when they hit the box office?
Do you?
No, not particularly. I think that the real problem here is that Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic, places like that need to change their algorithm, because right now critics have very limited choice. That a movie's either rotten or fresh, and there's nothing sort of in between. And we've seen that today with like the X-Men reviews. Like I think Dark Phoenix is the lowest rated X-Men on Rotten Tomatoes, even though I don't know how anyone would think it's the worst X-Men movie, because it's not. I just don't see like how these scores affect box office, like, because anyone who's voting for these scores theoretically has already seen, like in theory, they've already seen the movie, so the studio's already gotten their money. So it's like, how many people out there were going to see a Star Wars movie, or going to see Solo, and then they see these scores that reflect negativity, and they're like, well, now I'm not going to go anymore.
Well, I think you hit on two things there. So a recent change over at Rotten Tomatoes is the verified ticket element, where someone can't put up their review or vote on something unless they have a verified purchase there. But also, it's a matter of like stepping outside our little bubble, or even like movie diehards that really make that a priority with their hard-earned money to see as many as they possibly can. Rotten Tomatoes has grown exponentially over the years. It's a utility tool. I understand why if someone says, I've got X amount of dollars to spend on my movies these couple of months, I will turn to this aggregate and I will see what they recommend. And, in Dark Phoenix's case, it is unfortunate, but the other thing it's worth probably clarifying is on Rotten Tomatoes, what you're able to do is you can break down your score to whatever you want, whether you use a letter system or a number system. Like I could do a 6.5 out of 10 if I feel like it for whatever movie, and then you select fresh or rotten. So it's like if, let's say, a 5 out of 5 is fresh for someone, they could put fresh, or they could put rotten if that's a rotten score on their scale. So there are a little bit of like gray areas here and there, but I think it's a system that just needs to continue to chip away at that evolution until we kind of figure out how to right the conversation again.
Yeah, I get that, but I also think this idea of trolling becomes a cop-out for directors now, and it's starting to bother me, and for studios too, and I'm just like, oh, it's a trolling, that's why they did it. No, the movie didn't appeal to a lot of Star Wars fans. Star Wars fans could have trolled the hell out of Solo, but it was a damn good movie, people would have gone. Look, Ron Howard is a fantastic filmmaker, a great filmmaker, but the last time he whooped up audiences in a movie, you could barely remember. So him taking over Solo, Lord and Miller, if Lord and Miller had been allowed to finish this movie, then we would have seen one way or another how this would have turned out, positive or negative. That's the way it is. Ron Howard stepped in, made some corrections, made some casting decisions, and in the end, gave us an okay movie. Okay, it was an okay movie. So this is on the heels of Last Jedi. It got swamped by that. It wasn't about the trolling. It was the fans didn't like the movie itself and told people they didn't like the movie itself, and then people didn't go. And the ones who did, it was like a 50-50 whether they liked it or not. So that's what you get. That's why the box office was low. I don't have nothing to do with trolling. It was all this backstage drama, and then what eventually you got a meh of a film. This is why it didn't do well.
What's like the last spin-off that really did well? I mean, for maybe outside of Logan.
Rogue One was
Logan did well.
fantastic.
Which one?
Rogue One. Rogue One was incredible and did a lot of money.
Was it incredible?
Damn right it was.
I
Jeff.
really
it was
loved Rogue One.
successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And damn good.
I thought it was great too.
Yeah.
Trolling is a real thing, but like
Yeah, but to this
anything that hits the
extent.
theaters when we talk about box office, it's a multitude of factors
Right.
that come into effect. I do think that as far as online trolling goes, last year was just an especially bad year where we saw so many different movies targeted for so many different reasons, and it was also the first time I remember specifically the Rotten Tomatoes like audience score and those types of metrics being purposely manipulated by people who hadn't seen the movie, and that they're working to correct.
But Captain Marvel overcame that, and people are trolling the
This
crap
is
out of
still
Captain
such
Marvel.
a small number of people, though,
it's
guys.
not that
when
much
we think
to
about
hang
Twitter, everyone on Twitter's coming at me and blah, blah, blah. Twitter represents like
Mm-hmm.
5% of the population.
Yeah.
You could have 100,000 people saying something negative about your movie. 100,000 people equals $1 million at the box office. That's nothing.
The other layer of this problem, we're not just saying like, oh, this small community, like shame on you for trolling and trying to spread bad vibes. The problem in this particular instance, though, is that by manipulating a tool like Rotten Tomatoes that could affect wide moviegoers out there, that's when that loud, the vocal minority could then affect overall sales. But one important thing that Planeta Sophia brings up is the constant talking and reporting about the trolls the real cause of the poor performance of some movies? I do think that's part of it, but I'm also of the mind that if we just sit back, relax, and let it happen, it's like I want to take any opportunity I get to not just say like, not talk to someone who is super negative the same way that they're talking about a movie or another person, but to, I don't know, spin it in a positive way, set a good example, something like that. I don't want to completely ignore it.
I think you need to ignore it. There's only two, like it's no different than a schoolyard bully. There's two ways to deal with them. One, you hit him in the mouth, right? Which you can't do here online. The other one is to ignore him. I don't understand how many editors there are.
You could stand up to them. You could stand up to them and set a
by
good
saying,
example.
don't troll, don't do that. Like,
Yeah, there is
you're
a
giving
point.
credence to it. You're feeding into it.
Yeah, I get your point, Perry. You do want to stand up to them, but in the end, you're not really going to change them.
No.
How many, people talk about that Sarah Silverman exchange she had with that person who was politically against her. And it took 32 comments in a thread for him to finally go, oh, yeah, I see your point of view. Who has time to waste on every single troll 32 comment thread? So it doesn't make sense. You can make your comment, make your stand, but to actually enact change rather than just feeling good that you stood up, that's the difference there. And I don't think, making a comment is going to change.
You're giving them
how
more
many trolls.
publicity.
I've run into so many of those situations where, someone says something that, I have no problem when someone says something negative about a movie I love. It's when it's malicious. And I've reached out to people on Twitter and I say, I wouldn't express it that way because this and this and this. And then they rethink
But
it and then
Perri,
maybe they spread that mentality to somebody else.
That's what it's for. That's what Twitter is for. Reach out on Twitter, have that conversation. It's not for websites to do. I don't know why so many websites, Collider included, give credence to these things. When I was running the tracking board, if someone had pitched, fans for trolling whatever, I ignored that. That's not a story. It's not news. It shouldn't be on websites, and I don't know why anybody picks it up.
Well, it's subjective to argue. I think it is news depending on the situation. Like the Captain Marvel situation, I think it was news because in the end, it did cause change for Rotten Tomatoes. Like they decided to change their aggregator, all that kind of stuff, and put this in place because the Captain Marvel situation was the final straw. That was news that trolls caused this to change. Now, reporting on trolls exclusively as just in a vacuum, no, maybe not news. But if the reaction to the trolls causes some change, that is the news item to talk about.
And I'm with you on that. But that's when it becomes newsworthy,
Right.
when change is affected, not beforehand.
Can I throw something in before we stop? I know we got a little bit of time. Like, there's something else Ron Howard says in the article. He says, I don't know if a film like Beautiful Mind, which is one of his best films ever made, would get made nowadays. And I find this to be very interesting because this is starting to become the drumbeat of these older filmmakers, that films that are like adult dramas are not going to get made by studios anymore to the level and the frequency and the volume that they did in years past, because studios are more focusing on tentpole pictures, superhero pictures, franchise pictures, that kind of jazz. And I found that to be a very interesting comment.
It's a whole nother discussion, frankly, because it's not about trolling. That's not
but he mentions that in the article, and I thought that was interesting too.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I don't think we have time to get into it, though.
Yeah, that's the whole, that goes right back into the theatrical versus streaming conversation. The landscape, how it's changing, and where we're going to wind up with releases and creative opportunities. I'm sure we're going to get to that another day, though. Right now, though, we wanted to save some time for your live chat questions, and I've got one here from Luis E. de la Pena, who's asking, didn't the Ad Astra trailer have a Gravity or Interstellar vibe?
Oh my God, stop comparing. It's a space movie. I don't think it has an Interstellar vibe. I get the father-son aspect of it all, what you're trying to get across, but his father is still alive and he's not jumping dimensions to go find his father. It's something, I think it's more interesting about whether it's destruction of the universe as we know it. That's more the exploration. Gravity, I don't know. I get the comparisons because it's mother-daughter or father-daughter, and this is father-son, but I don't think it really...
Or it's just
I got that vibe.
in space.
Yeah, stuff in space.
I was surprised by the scope of it. It was bigger than I thought that it would be. It looks like it's sort of on the level of those kinds of movies. Maybe not pushing the technological envelope like Gravity did. But yeah, I was surprised at how much it reminded me of Interstellar, things like that.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that one pans out, because it feels like that was a very full trailer story-wise, which makes me think, given the people involved, that there's going to be something that catches me off guard in the actual full feature. I'm curious to know what that winds up being. We also have another question from Planeta Sophia, who asks, what other type of sport event should get a movie like Britney Runs a Marathon? And I love the trailer. Has a lot of heart. I couldn't agree more.
Well, I'm biased. I would say the Liverpool run to the Champions League victory that they had, becoming the champions of Europe last week. I would love to see them profile that team or do a movie about that team and how they overcame the odds and fought through so many things to get there to win the first title for that manager who'd been in 5 cup finals before, never won, and finally won it. I'm biased though, because I'm a massive Liverpool fan.
There's one sport that has not been brought to the big screen, and that is mini golf.
I knew you were going to go with something like that. I just knew it.
They need to do something with mini golf.
Do you putt-putt? Yeah. Do you mini golf? Yeah. I will challenge you on Movie Talk for a game.
I will challenge both of you. Don't even.
I will gladly go
Just
play mini golf with you, John, when you watch The Insider.
Oh, Jesus Christ. All right, fine.
As long as we can bring our own putters. I don't want to use those crappy plastic ones.
That's so perfect.
No, you have to use the crappy putter.
You have to use the crappy putter. That's part of the skill.
No, it's not. Yes. The part of the skill is being able to really hit the ball.
That's like bowling with Cody, and Cody has to bring his own ball. Come on, Cody. Bowl with what's there.
Point. I think I'll go your route, Jeff. I want a skee ball movie, but one that's done Hangover style. Because my buddy Matt Donato, he plays in a league in Brooklyn.
There's
and
a skee ball league?
They
I'm good at skee ball.
hardcore play, and they have beer and they drink, and can you imagine the crazy stuff that comes out of a sport? It sounds like a skee ball version of dodgeball in my mind. I like that idea. I think it's genius. All right. We'll keep you updated if that ever happens, and also what the results of our mini golf competition is going to be.
We should get
something on
let's
the
write
line
that movie.
right
I'll put
now.
someone on. Dorian film this thing. You come with us that night. We'll do it at Sherman Oaks.
Shaking his head.
We'll do it at Sherman Oaks,
You're not
dog.
into it? All right. We're going to make it happen. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Collider Movie Talk. Rocha, Jeff, thank you as always. Adam in the booth, thanks for your hard work. And Dorian in the live chat, always working hard there. Guys, do not forget, like and share this episode of Collider Movie Talk. Tell everybody you know about the show on the YouTube channel and in podcast form as well. And we will be back 3 p.m. PT live tomorrow for a brand new episode.